The lights in this factory haven't been switched on in over 3 years, not because it shut down, because it never needed them. Inside, robotic arms move through total darkness, picking, welding, and assembling at a pace no human shift could ever keep up with. No coffee breaks, no shift changes at 6 in the morning, no safety lighting because there's nobody left to keep safe. It's now run in China around the clock, some scaled up from a single pilot line into full national manufacturing programs in less than a decade, each one producing components at a volume that would have needed thousands of workers a generation earlier. Every factory ever built before this one depended on people to run it. This one doesn't, and it still produces millions of components around the clock, with almost none of them coming out wrong. Nobody set out to build a factory with no workers in it. That wasn't even the plan at the start. So how do you build a factory that never has to stop, without a single person on the floor to keep it going? Chapter 1. Why traditional factories can't run forever. A normal factory doesn't fail because its machines break down. It fails because the people running those machines eventually have to stop. Shifts end. Workers get tired toward the end of a 12-hour stretch, and tired hands make different decisions than fresh ones. A part assembled at 2 in the afternoon isn't guaranteed to match one assembled at 2 in the morning, because the person doing the work isn't the same person and isn't in the same state either way. Every shift change is a small gap in continuity, a moment where consistency has to be rebuilt from scratch. But the gaps weren't the real problem. The real problem was what those gaps cost at scale. Multiply those small inconsistencies across millions of units, and they stop being small. One facility that later switched to full automation had employed roughly 650 workers on its assembly floor. Even with careful management, that many people working in shifts still produced measurable variation from one batch to the next. A factory running at full output around the clock isn't limited by how fast its machines can move. It's limited by how long a human body can keep performing at the same level before something changes, on a break, on a shift, on a bad day nobody planned for. The idea of running a factory without anyone on the floor wasn't new. A single production line in Japan had operated that way, unlit since the early 2000s, treated by the engineers who built it as a proof of concept rather than a finished product. Nobody had tried to scale that idea into an entire national manufacturing strategy. That was about to change. Chapter 2. Replacing every human task. If human limits were the obstacle, the fix wasn't to make people work harder. It was to stop assigning the work to people at all. Every task that used to depend on a person's hands, eyes, or judgment became a separate engineering problem, solved one at a time. Robotic arms took over assembly and welding first, repeating the same motion with the same precision on Unit 1 and Unit 1 million. Autonomous carts replaced workers pushing components between stations, navigating the floor using laser and radar sensors instead of eyes, locating themselves and each other in complete darkness down to fractions of a centimeter, which meant they didn't need light to see by at all. Cameras mounted above the line replaced human quality checks, scanning every finished part in 3 dimensions before it ever left the station, working at tolerances measured in microns, far finer than any human eye could reliably judge. One by one, every task a human used to perform got handed to a machine built to do that one thing without ever tiring of it. Every human task had finally been replaced. But replacing the tasks turned out to be the easy half of the problem. A person on the floor could see the whole line, notice when something upstream was running behind, and adjust. A robot could only see its own task, which meant nobody, human or otherwise, could see the factory as a whole anymore. Chapter 3. The factory that thinks for itself. Hundreds of independent machines, each excellent at its own narrow job, still needed to move like a single system instead of hundreds of separate ones. Engineers gave each robot its own onboard processing, so no single one depended on a central computer to keep functioning. If one connection dropped, the whole floor didn't go down with it. That solved the most obvious risk, a single point of failure that could stop the entire factory at once. One danger had been engineered away. A different one appeared almost immediately in its place. When dozens of independent machines are all making their own routing and timing decisions at the same time, in the same physical space, they start running into each other's plans. Two carts reach the same intersection from opposite directions. A finished part is needed at two stations simultaneously, and both systems assume they'll get it. Left alone, a factory built entirely from independent intelligent machines was just as capable of gridlocking itself as any factory full of people rushing to hit a deadline. Solving that took more than better code written in a lab. Engineers spent over a year watching the deployed systems actually operate on a live production floor, logging every conflict as it happened and writing rules around behavior nobody could have predicted on paper. The factory, in a very real sense, had to learn how to run itself by running. A live digital model of the entire floor ran alongside the real one, tracking every machine's position and status in real time, so a conflict could be predicted and rerouted around before it ever actually happened on the factory floor itself. The system wasn't just reacting to problems anymore. It was watching itself closely enough to see them coming. Coordination was solved, but a factory that never stops moving still has to survive, never stopping at all. Chapter 4. The Hidden Engineering Challenge. Here is the part almost nobody expects walking into this story. Getting robots to build things precisely and getting them to coordinate without colliding still wasn't the hardest problem to solve. The real challenge was making sure the entire system could run without a single planned pause of any kind forever. Every robot eventually needs maintenance. Every sensor eventually drifts out of calibration. In a normal factory, a person notices a problem and reports it. Here, the system had to notice its own wear before it became a failure, predicting when a part would need servicing days before it actually broke down, and routing work around it automatically so the line never had to stop to find out. Redundancy had to be built into everything, spare capacity and backup routing quietly, waiting behind every station. Because a factory that never stops for a scheduled break also never gets a convenient moment to fix something that goes wrong. Engineers had solved coordination. They had solved precision. They still hadn't solved the one thing that mattered most: never stopping at all. This is the twist that changes how the whole project looks. Removing the workers was never actually the goal. The real target was removing every source of interruption a factory can have. And it turned out that human limitations, the fatigue, the breaks, the shift changes, the inconsistent judgment calls, were the single biggest source of interruption in the entire system. Take away every interruption, and you've also, almost as a side effect, taken away the need for the workers who used to cause them. The robots weren't the point. The absence of any reason to stop was. Chapter 5. What happens when humans leave the factory? Once interruption itself had been engineered out, the results showed up in numbers that are hard to argue with. Facilities built this way have reported defect rates near 0.1%, compared to somewhere between 1% and 3% at a comparable human-operated line. Because a robotic arm guided by optical feedback doesn't have a bad afternoon. Output holds steady at 3 in the morning the same way it does at 3 in the afternoon, because nothing about the system cares what time it is. One converted facility that once ran with roughly 650 workers on the floor cut its human headcount down to a small monitoring team, while output rose several times over. Even energy use drops because a factory with no people in it no longer needs to heat, light, or ventilate the space for human comfort at all. The factory isn't literally empty. A handful of engineers still come in, but they don't assemble anything, don't push a single cart, and don't touch a single part. They watch dashboards, step in only when a system flags something the machines can't resolve on their own, and otherwise stay out of a process that no longer needs them standing over it. Compared to the hundreds who once worked this floor in shifts, what's left is barely a shadow of a workforce, and none of it does the actual work anymore. None of these were the original goal either. They were what happens naturally once a factory stops being designed around the limits of the people running it and starts being designed around nothing but the work itself. Visitors who tour a facility like this often expect the story to be about robots. It isn't. The handful of engineers still walking the floor aren't proof the factory needs them to run. They're just what's left of a workforce that used to number in the hundreds, kept on to watch, not to work. The robots are just what's left over once every source of interruption has been engineered out of a factory, one limitation at a time. Every shift change eliminated. Every inconsistency between a tired hand and a fresh one erased. Every unplanned stop replaced with a system that predicts its own failures before they happen. The machines didn't replace the people so much as the people were removed once. Nothing about the process needed a body standing there anymore. Factories have always been built around what humans can sustain, their hours, their attention, their limits. This one was built around none of that at all, treating every one of those old limits as just another engineering problem waiting to be solved rather than a fact of how factories simply had to work. The real achievement was never turning the lights off. It was designing a process so continuous that nobody ever needed to turn them on in the first place.